Welcome to DentReviews. Today I'm going to be doing a review of the Final Audio E500 earphone. This is a budget entry-level model. It's $25 at the time of this review on Amazon.com. It's not the most durable thing out there, and it's not the most amazing design-wise, but hey, it's $25, right? So I'll go over the bill real quick, keep this kind of short. The housings of the earpieces are ABS plastic. The cable itself is a standard, I think it's 98% oxygen-free copper cable, whoop-de-doo, basic cable. The right angle connector is actually very nice. That is a very slim barrel. It would fit in probably any player or case out there. It has a nice small centerpiece. And it actually, surprisingly, at this price range, has a small little cord lock cinch, whatever you want to call that. Keep things tidy. The downfall to this cable, and also goes along with the price range, is the right angle connector has practically no stress relief, nothing that would actually do anything. The cable is fairly thin. It feels like the kind of rubber that you'd have on a $10 Sony earphone that most people are probably familiar with. Nothing special, kind of run-of-the-mill. The housings have no strain relief to speak of. There's literally just an open hole that these things go into. It reminds me a lot of the Zero Audio Carbo Tenor. I've had a few sets of those in the past, and unfortunately, these are the failure point. So at $25, I wouldn't expect a replaceable cable, but because it doesn't have one, if it does fail there, this is basically trash, unless you happen to be a really handy earphone modifier. The earpieces themselves are typical silicone, small bore, kind of, again, almost like the Sony style, like on the Bump and Buzz or the small MDR earphones you'd buy for cheap. The cores are color-coded, and they have kind of a ribbed design to them, which is interesting. The inside of the housings look like a little white plastic filter. I'm assuming it's plastic. I'm not going to sit and prod in there because it's not my earphone. But nonetheless, it is a very lightweight ABS plastic, so it's probably not the most durable, but it's also probably prone to, or not prone to being damaged by dropping or knocking because there's just not a lot of weight and it's plastic. So I just worry the most again about that cable. The fit is pretty comfortable. You can slide them right in. They're shallow fit earphones. They don't really touch anything in your ear because they're just a stem, so it's not like any of the custom shapes. And that's pretty comfortable if you like that style. And because of that, you can also easily wear this around the ear and just put it in upside down. So they're very flexible and fit. They can also easily be pushed in very deeply. Now, I'm not going to keep pushing them in because I probably could push them into my eardrum if I wanted to. You could easily put these to etymotic levels. It doesn't really help the sound in any way. If anything, it kind of makes it sound a little bit more muffled. So overall, the build and the design is okay. I think for the price, is pretty decent. So how do they sound? Well, I think for $25, they're actually pretty impressive. They lean towards a safe tuning. What I mean is that they're fairly linear in the balance. The mids, the bass, the treble are kind of all in line with each other to some degree. The biggest issue I have with the tuning is that the pinna gain in that sort of low treble region is just not where it needs to be. And again, it's probably geared to be a little bit more safer tuning, more relaxed. But anything between 1 to 5 kilohertz, let's say, is to me the most critical region of an earphone in most regards, and it really needs to be at the right level for things to have a believable and accurate sounding quality to it. These are a little bit less than ideal. I think they're probably 3 to 4 decibels reduced from that neutral target that I like. Now, they are reduced in a very linear way. There's no bumps or peaks. They're just kind of a dipped area there. So it doesn't sound that the resolution or the detail retrieval is really diminished too much from that. It's just the tonal quality of things, like the timbre and the ambience and the small cool quality of the treble is just not there. And for me, that's kind of a deal breaker. But again, at $25, I think it's still a very, very respectable sound. The bass has what I would call a bass hump, and it's centered around maybe 300 to 400 hertz, so it's kind of a mid-bass hump. I would describe it as being a little bit of a mid-bass bloom, and you might hear things like woolly bass or, soft warm bass. things like that. I think this has a little bit of extra warmth in that mid-bass region, and also because of that, the shape causes the sub-bass to roll off a little bit, and in relation to the rest of the bass, it doesn't stand out. So these are definitely not a firm, deep-hitting, thumping bass earphone. In fact, they're not really for bass heads at all, but even if you like the quality of the bass that they have, they put the mid-bass presence over everything else. So you're not going to get a lot of firm, tight bass. Now, they don't do that in the bass or that lower treble region too far off of neutrality, so we're not talking like huge variances, but it is a few decibels in that treble and a decibel or two in that mid-bass. And what that does is it just detracts from the openness of the sound and makes it sound a little more intimate, a little bit more warm, and a little bit less, maybe not resolving per se, but a little bit less cool and natural sounding, and a little bit less like you're listening to things under a slight blanket maybe. Now, the treble is the most interesting part of the frequency response. It's what I kind of like and dislike about the response the most. At about 10 kilohertz is where these kind of start to roll off pretty fast. So they don't have the most high treble air and open spaciousness. However, despite that, the treble is remarkably smooth for a $25 earphone. It's remarkably smooth for really any earphone. They have a very nice and linear response. There are no obvious dips or peaks at all anywhere in the treble. So even though the treble has sort of a warm and recessed quality in the lower region and a rolled off and less than airy quality in the upper region, it's so smooth and linear in its shape that it's revealing, it's easy to listen to, and there's really nothing that you hear at first that's objectionable or missing or really detracts from the enjoyment of the sound. It's just if you were to compare it, kind of critically to another earphone, you're going to see that it doesn't have a lot of extension. It has a soft, kind of relaxing quality to it. The bass isn't firm and tight, and just the overall coherency is just a little bit lower because of all those things. The imaging and the technical performance of this earphone are very good, and especially at the price range is really, really good. But compared to some heavy hitters at their own price ranges, like the Tangime Oxygen, the Moondrop Starfield, things like that, those are all going to give you better imaging, more precision, a more open and natural sound, more linear response, firmer, tighter bass, just a more convincing sound. Now, I'm not trying to say that these are tremendously far off from those, but in a direct comparison, these are going to sound less detailed, softer, a little bit more safe. Whereas if you're not comparing them and you listen to these for 5 or 10 minutes and you kind of let your brain adapt to them, I think is a very enjoyable listen, and there's really nothing that's lacking in them. I don't think you're going to want to pound EDM on these, nor are you probably going to want to stick in binaural recordings that, you're looking for the ultra most realistic sound there is. It's not that they would do bad in either of those, but it's just not going to excel. So the way I would wrap this up is I'd say that these are a very safe, relaxed tuning with very good performance at the price range. Nothing remarkable, but really they don't do anything wrong. They're not very durable, but they're affordable. And I think if you like the character of the sound, the safe and warm and relaxed sound, these might be for you. For people who don't like edemotic because that 2 kilohertz bump is just too much for them, this is going to be a lot better. It's going to relax that for you, plus they're shallow fit. For people who think that any kind of peaks or dips in the treble are annoying or irritating, well, you might suffer a little lack of presence, but the treble linearity, the smoothness, is going to be really good on these, so they're not going to be at all offensive at all. If you're someone who doesn't want a lot of bass, you're not a bass head, and you don't want anything that's too bass light either, these are a really good blend of good quantity of bass, good quality of bass, but maybe just not the most linear. A little bit more with that mid-bass boost. So that's kind of how I would describe these things. If you guys have any questions at all about them, as usual, just leave them below. And I would ask you guys, just please subscribe, like the video, and share it with anyone that you might want to share it with. Help the channel, stay going. And as always, I do appreciate it, and thank you guys for watching.